Welcome to the Infuse Compassion podcast, hosted by me, Amy Quisenberry.
And me, Mark Carpenter.
We are on a mission to make this world a kinder place for us all by bringing healthier human connection to communities, families, and organizations of all types and sizes.
Our goal is to create stronger relationships, more inspired teams, increased trust, and improved results.
So let's get started with more ways to infuse compassion into our world. Welcome back, Compassionators, to another episode of the Infuse Compassion podcast. We have somebody that is going to open your heart and open your mind, and may even, I'll leave it to Mark. I'm going to let Mark do the introductions. I'm not going to steal your thunder here, Mark. I wouldn't do that to you, dear. All right, Mark, turning it over to you.
You wanted to steal my thunder, though, didn't you?
Did you see I came this close? I came and I'm like, Amy,
I saw that.
I saw that to our friends. We don't do that to our friends.
Let's get to our guest, because this is what's really important. We have with us today Brad Aronson, who's an author, a teacher, and a consultant. He teaches entrepreneurship in Camden, New Jersey, and everyone in his classes starts their own business. This also leads him to do some consulting with a lot of startup organizations. The focus for today is the book that he's authored called HumanKind, Changing the World One Small Act at a Time. Now, if you ask Brad, in addition to all that other work, the great work that he's doing, probably the most important title for him is husband and father. And he'll tell you, like, he likes to go all out in those roles. I understand that there have been times when there have been sports games played in the house, and explanations of why things are broken have to happen. He lives with his family in the Philadelphia area, and he also serves on the nonprofit board of HopeWorks. Brad Aronson, welcome to the Infuse Compassion podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, this is a great opportunity. I have read Brad's book, and I just want to give fair warning to our listeners that they should have some tissues handy, because we're going to talk about some of the stories within this book, and it may bring some tears to your eye. So have some tissues or a very absorbent sleeve if that's your thing from what you're about to hear. Brad, I want you to start with telling us, how did you get into that work? How did you come to write a book called HumanKind that is filled with dozens of stories of the kind acts of people toward others in their times of needs? How did that come about?
So there were a couple inspirations for the book. The first was the high school graduation of a mentee of mine. She went to Girard College, which, even though it's called Girard College, it is a high school in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And at her graduation, on the left side of me sat this 70-something-year-old guy, and he told me that he graduated from Girard. The school changed his life, so he came back every year to support the next generation of graduates. And he had moved to New York, so he's told me he's taking a 2-hour trip to be here. And he's on one side of me, and on the other side of me is this woman who's in tears. And she said she thought her daughter would be dead or in jail, and here she is graduating. And there's a part in the ceremony where you sing the school song. They give out the little papers with the lyrics. And the guy next to me stood up, and he is singing it so proudly. I mean, this was a beautiful moment. And the commencement speaker got up and talked about how the kids graduating from Girard were from zip codes in Philadelphia, where statistically, many of them wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be graduating. Very few would be going on to college. But in this case, every single graduating senior had been accepted to college. And he talked about the obstacles they overcame and how they made this happen. And it was inspiring. And then he went on to say, unfortunately, these students are inheriting a world of negativity. And that's why tomorrow you won't see anything about Girard in the news. So of course, I wake up the next day, I get online, there's nothing. I even go out and I buy the Philadelphia Inquirer. It's our daily newspaper. I look through every page, zero about Girard. And I was so sad because I felt like I was an extra in an inspirational movie. And if other people knew these stories and got to meet these students, they would feel great. They would be lifted up. They would feel optimistic. And I decided that if I wanted these stories out there, I should write them and not just hope they get out there. So I started writing about good news and organizations and people that inspired me. And then, so that kind of started my writing journey. And then a few years later, my wife was diagnosed with leukemia. And that began a 2.5-year treatment process. The type of leukemia she had, they say, this is the treatment, it's 2.5 years. Here's what you could expect. And basically, I'm in the hospital almost every day with her for her treatments. And at some point, the nurses said, you guys should go to this conference for young cancer patients and their caregivers. And my wife and I thought, we're in the hospital every day. We do not want to go to a cancer conference on the weekend. That sounds like an awful idea. We're like, nah, this isn't really for us. And the nurses kept pushing. And we thought, like, if you've ever had a health scare or a health need, the nurses are absolute angels. They saved us. They got us through that. So Mia, my wife, and I decided that if they thought we should go to this conference, we should go. So we're there. And one of the speakers had been through the same treatment as Mia. And she said, if you have 2.5 years of treatment ahead of you, you need a project. A project gives you a focus. It gives you a distraction. It gives you something to do. So that night at dinner, we're talking about, all right, we should come up with projects. And my wife says, I'll write in a journal every day a little bit or draw a little picture. Our son, he was about 5 at the time. So not really, he knew something serious was going on, but he didn't get the full gist. But he understood projects. And I think he thought, like, my way to contribute is I'm going to have a project and I'm going to stick to it. And he is a diehard Phillies fan. So yesterday was very sad for him as the Phillies got kicked out of the finals in that game. But he's a diehard Phillies fan. So he said, all right, I'm going to play 200 days of wiffle ball in a row, no matter what. And every day he would dress up in his full Phillies gear. So he has Phillies wristbands, a Phillies necklace, a hat, everything. And he and I would go out there, and every day the Phillies would have this huge victory over whatever team I was representing that day in wiffle ball. And that was his project. And I decided I would write. So my project would be writing about all the people who came out of the woodwork and helped us during that difficult time. And then I'd also write about how other small acts of kindness can have a ripple effect. And that's where I started finding these stories where something that you think is really small, like a holiday gift or some words of encouragement, had this ripple effect and would change thousands of lives. And so those were the combined inspirations that led to the book.
That's awesome. Now, I know this is a little bit like asking people with multiple children, who's your favorite child? But do you have one story from the book that stands out to you as maybe one of your favorites?
Man, everyone asks that. And gosh, I just spoke at a high school and all the kids are like, what's your favorite story? I love aspects of all of them. There's stories I didn't include that I loved because there just wasn't space. So I love all of them. And if you want, I could share one of the ones that
share one of your top ones. Share one of the top ones. It doesn't have to be the favorite, but just share one of your favorite stories from the book, or even maybe one that didn't get in the book.
I'll share one from the book that and then later I could share one not from the book if there's time. One of the ones from the book that really shows how something tiny could have a ripple effect. And this is about a kid named Jimmy. So Jimmy grew up in Flint, Michigan. And when he was in 3rd grade, all he wanted to do was fly under the radar and not be noticed. But that was kind of hard for him because he was different than the other kids. As an example, when he came to school, his shoes were tied in a huge jumble of knots. And no other kid in 3rd grade had like quadruple plus knots in their shoes. But he was the only kid in the grade who couldn't tie his own shoes. And he was horrified that he'd have to ask for help. So instead, he had his parents tie all these knots. And, the reason why he was the only kid who couldn't tie his own shoes was because there was something that made him different than every other kid in the whole school. He was missing one of his hands. And it was difficult. He said that kids would tease him and call him Captain Hook, that on his first day of third grade, one of his classmates burst out in tears because his prosthetic hand was so scary. So obviously, he wasn't going to fly under the radar. Well, one day he gets to school, and his teacher, Mr. Clarkson, is sitting outside of the classroom. Jimmy, I figured it out. What'd you figure out, Mr. Clarkson? I'll show you. So Mr. Clarkson turned on a movie for the rest of the class, dragged 2 chairs into the hall, and taught Jimmy how to tie his shoes with one hand. And decades later, Jim said, I don't know if it took 30 minutes or hours for him to figure out how to tie his shoes with one hand. But the fact that he did it was one of those kind of inflection points in my life. It made me realize that I could do anything I wanted to do if I put my mind to it. And Jimmy loved baseball. So he started playing baseball. He's practicing. He's playing every day. And he became a good baseball player. Actually, he became a great baseball player. He wound up leading the U.S. Olympic team to a gold medal as our pitcher in the Olympics in Korea. And then he went on to play professional baseball. He started playing for the Yankees. And he said that once he started playing, all these families would come to the games and bring their children who had disabilities because they wanted to show their kids, like, look, you could do whatever you want to do. And they wanted to show that inspiration. And Jim said he tried to meet with all those kids and families. And he started getting hundreds of letters a week, hundreds. And he and someone else at the ball club would answer every single one. Because he said he knew how far a little bit of encouragement could go. And Jim also regularly spoke at events for kids who had a disability to inspire them, to raise money. I mean, he reached tens of thousands of kids. And one of those kids that he reached was Nick Newell. When Nick was 6 years old, his grandparents took him to a Yankee game. And Nick, of course, got to do a meet and greet with Jim Abbott. And Nick said it was the first time in his life he had met anyone else who was missing one of their hands. And that Jim told him, said, Nick, you could do anything you want to do. Just go for it and work hard. And Nick always wanted to wrestle. And he said that he kind of took Jim's advice and just kept it in his heart. He was 6 years old talking to Jim Abbott, the famous baseball player. And I should say, I mean, Jim Abbott pitched a no-hitter. He wrote an incredible memoir. This is a guy who had a lot going on, and he took the time to meet with all these kids and families. And Nick gets to high school, and he starts wrestling. And he's awful. He loses his first 13 matches by getting pinned. If you don't follow wrestling, getting pinned is the absolute worst way to lose a wrestling match. But he gets progressively better. And by senior year, he has state records. He has school records. He's co-captain of the team. He goes to college. He starts wrestling in college. And then he discovers mixed martial arts. And he loses his first tournament, but loves it. And he wins his next 17. He's a good competitor. So he applies to compete in the UFC because it's the most well-known and the highest paying mixed martial arts league. And Dana White, who's the CEO, says, it's so hard to compete with 2 hands. I'd be crazy to let someone compete with one, and says no. So Nick joins another mixed martial arts league and becomes a world champion. And he told me, he said, after I became a world champion, all these parents started seeking me out saying, how could I encourage my children who have a disability? And Nick started speaking at events for kids who had lost all or part of an upper limb. And he said he tried to meet with all these families. And Nick's a busy guy. So he still competes in these tournaments. He owns a small business. So he has a series of gyms that he owns where he trains people in mixed martial arts. He has a young child. And I said, Nick, you're one of the busiest guys I know. Like, what inspires you to meet with all these kids? And what do you tell them? And he said, when I was 6 years old, Jim Abbott met with me and taught me that I'm not too important to meet with anyone else. And when I meet with these kids, I teach them that they could do anything they want to do. And sometimes I teach them how to tie their shoes with one hand. Don Clarkson, who's the teacher, had no idea that he'd be impacting tens of thousands of kids. He saw a need and did something about it, and it had this massive ripple effect. And so many of the stories in the book are like that. And it just shows us, like, we don't have to plan for something enormous. We don't have to figure out spend a lot of money. We just have to see an opportunity and take that step.
Love it. So there's like 3 stories embedded in that. That's what I love about that one story, is it really got us 3. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for ending with that thought, because that was one of the thoughts that crossed my mind as you were sharing this, is a lot of people have this idea that in order for me to make a difference, I have to do something big and something grand. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I'm not a celebrity. And so a part of the book that I love is that every chapter you have ideas of what people can do simply to give kindness. So what do you say to people that say, well, I don't have enough. I don't have enough time, money, whatever it happens to be, to really make a difference with kindness?
I tell them I love that they want to do something huge. I mean, that's awesome. And I say, hear me out for a second. I think you could start right now. And, so what I learned in writing the book, when I wrote HumanKind, all the stories are similar to the Jim Abbott story, where there's this small act of kindness that changed someone's life. And in writing those stories, I talked to hundreds of people going through a difficult time and asked them, what helped you? What could have made your life easier? What did people do that made a difference? And there was one thing that every single person agreed on, which is shocking. When do you find something that everyone agrees on? Everyone said that being seen mattered. Mm. And being seen wasn't talking about what they were going through. Many of them didn't want to talk about it at all. And in some cases, it didn't mean talking to anyone. It meant that they knew someone saw them, saw what they were going through, and reached out. So just getting a note, I'm thinking of you. Or someone would stop by and be like, hey, I baked some cookies. I want you to have some. The recipient knew why they were bringing over the cookies, or why they were texting a meme or a joke. And so often, most of us know someone going through a rough time. So often we don't reach out to them because we think, well, I don't want to impose. They might not want to talk about it. It might be awkward. I don't know what to say. Something I learned is just by reaching out and saying, I'm thinking of you, like, that gives people the strength to keep going. That is a huge opportunity for us. And I'll address one more thing in there, and so I don't talk too much and then let you get back to the questions. I'd say that fear of I don't know what to say, I heard a lot of times. And in writing the book, I've learned that most people, you don't have to bring up what they're going through, right? They'll bring it up if they want to talk about it. Or you can say, do you want to talk about it? And if they do say what they're going through, all we have to say is, thank you for sharing. Or thank you for sharing, I love you. Thank you for sharing, I'm here for you. Thank you for sharing, what can I do for you? So often, because we're good people, we want to find a silver lining. Like, don't worry, you'll get through it, or you're really strong. And what I heard is that that's not always helpful. That a person says, I don't know that I'm going to get through it. They don't know that I'm going to get through it. Or they just said I'm really strong and I'm falling apart. And now I can't share that I'm falling apart because they think I'm strong. So the whole thank you for sharing is a great way to approach that conversation. And if every day we look for those opportunities, we can make someone's life a little bit better.
So incredibly powerful. I mean, Mark was right. I mean, I had to hold back to not just have the waterworks coming. You're an incredible storyteller. And I'm really glad that you shared that story. It's interesting because when you said, when you were talking about Mr. Clarkson and what he did, I wrote down, saw Jimmy.
Yes.
He saw Jimmy. That's what I knew the heart of it. And then you came back and later said, all of these people said that they were seen. And I think that that's such a big part of when we show up with kindness, when we show up with compassion, we're seeing somebody. So here's my question for you. Sometimes we can get in our way
right? Sometimes we see somebody that we want to help and we can actually talk ourselves out of it because of a variety of things. What do you tell the person that has the best intentions, but they don't want to inconvenience? They don't, this person's very private. I don't want to make them uncomfortable, or I don't know what I would do. What do you tell that person who has the best intentions to help but is stopping themselves from doing something?
So if I took my own experience, so when Mia was in the hospital and we were going through a very rough time, we got a note and it was from someone we didn't know. It said, "Hey, my name is Jill. My daughter is in your son's class. You don't know me, but I want to let you know you have another parent in your corner. I'm thinking of you." I'm tearing up as I'm thinking about that. And for me, we were going through such a difficult time. We're like, oh my God, this is so nice. And when you're going through those times, you need those moments to help you get through it. And I think you can send a note without forcing someone to have a conversation. That's just basically saying, "Hey, I know you're going through a rough time. I want to let you know I'm in your corner. I'm thinking of you. I'm sending positivity." And that makes a difference. And everyone's different. So some people may not want you talking to them. They may not want you doing something. But from writing the book and talking to hundreds of people, that was the only thing every single person mentioned, was someone just seeing me. So send them a note that you're thinking of them. And if you want to take a step further, do something for them. So often, so before our family had our health issue, when someone was going through a rough time, I'd be like, "Let me know what I could do for you." Because I didn't want to make an assumption. I just thought like they'll tell me what they need. And I realized when people said that to me, I was so frazzled. I was like, "I'll get back to you." I couldn't even remember who said that. And it was great when people just did something, right? So I get an email, "Hey, I'm taking my kids to this soccer game. I think your son would love it. Can I take him with us?" Right? I could say yes or no. Or, "Hey, guess what? We made a whole giant pot of chicken soup. Can we bring half over for you?" I could say yes or no. And when it snowed and I woke up and someone had shoveled our sidewalk, I was like, "All right, thank heavens," because I got to get Jack to school. Then I got to go to the hospital. I'm juggling so much stuff. The sidewalk's done. So just doing things that are small, it's a huge weight, not only because you don't have to do that yourself, but because someone sees you and it's giving you that strength to keep going.
Thank you. That's
You're welcome.
beautiful.
You started with the story about the high school graduation, or the what did they call the school? It was
Girard. They call it Girard College. They call it Girard College.
That's what it was. Okay, I wasn't getting the name right. But you started with that graduation ceremony and the gentleman who said, "The sad thing is tomorrow none of this will be in the news." We live in a world where we're kind of bombarded by controversy, conflict, disagreement, anger, a lot of negativity that's out there. How do we keep focused on doing good and the recognition that there is good in the world when we've got all that coming at us from all these different directions?
I think what we look for is so important. And I'll tell a quick little story here. I was visiting Harding, which is a middle school near where I teach. It's in Kensington, which is one of the rougher areas of Philadelphia. And the staff was telling me about how they rolled out these things called bonus bucks. And basically, if you notice a student doing something good, you give them a bonus buck, they could trade it in for a snack or a prize. And they said what was amazing was before they rolled it out, they had planned they're going to roll it out, and they're looking around to see who's going to get the first bonus box. They noticed all these amazing things their students were doing. And I asked, I said, "Well, why'd you notice? Did the students find out bonus bucks were coming? So they were like preempting the system, or was there a culture change?" They said, no, they just weren't looking for that. There was so much going on in the school. They were looking to make sure, okay, everything's okay. Everyone's academics are in order. We're keeping everyone safe. And they weren't looking for like, what are the amazing things our students doing? And once they started looking, they found it. And I think we have to make sure that we're paying attention to what we look at and what we look for. And I think of sites like Nice News or Good News Network or Good, where they have daily news feeds of the good things happening in the world. And personally, I find it really helpful to read that every day and see, oh my goodness, here's this great story of people who are doing good, because too often they don't show up in the media. And if that's all that we're taking in, it's really tough on us. Like, how could it be hard not to be negative? So I think we have to look for those opportunities of making sure that our diet is not just the food, but that our media diet includes a balance, right? And also the people we hang out with. The people we hang out with have an influence on us. Or we hang out with people who are positive and looking for opportunities, or people who are not. So I think what we expose ourselves to makes a huge difference. And then doing those acts ourselves makes us happy and lets us see the opportunity. So those would be my suggestions.
This is a big one, because when, like you said, we can be overwhelmed by all of this stuff that's coming in that isn't positive, that is just heavy. Just walking on the planet can be difficult, right? Just getting up out of bed sometimes can be a little too much. And so, is there just one little tip that you would give somebody who their default, their instinct is to go to, this is what's wrong? This is to say, okay, I'm just going to do one thing simple. Is there one recommendation that you could make to help them flip the switch to start to begin to look for the sunshine?
Yes. And I want to acknowledge that there is a lot of bad things going on. It is very tough. It's very demoralizing, but there's also a lot of good going on, and we need to find that. For someone who has a really hard time with that, what I've done with my students that has worked really well. So a lot of my students have been through a lot of trauma. There's a lot of stress. And I've had them sit down and just write a thank you note. So think of someone who made a difference and just write them a note. And what's amazing is all my students afterwards are like, I feel amazing. That was so great. And then I try to get it incorporated. All right, so now we're in our next class the next week. Let's write a note again. Oh, this is great. And I believe that if we took a few minutes every day to write a note to one person, and it could be short, it could be a text message, it could be an email, like, here's what I appreciate about you. We're making someone's day, first off, which is fantastic. And we're making ourselves feel great. It's a double bonus. I think that is one way to start being more positive. And based on all the research about habits, like, it's easier to have a habit if you attach it to another habit. So maybe every morning after breakfast or every night after dinner, you take 10 minutes, you write that note, and you get into that habit. And I'll give a quick example. One of my students, Karima, showed me this letter, and she said, I've been carrying this around for 2 years. I said, 2 years? Like, tell me about this letter. I mean, she's probably 21 or something. You got this for 2 years? She said, yeah, like, a teacher wrote it for me, and I just felt like someone saw me and appreciated me. And I want to be reminded of that. And we might not have letters that we carry around with us, but we probably have ones that we filed away on our computers or in a box that mean a lot to us. So doing that for someone else is such a gift for them, and I think a gift for us.
Beautiful. I love that. And you've inspired me to actually do that. I really like that. And there's so much evidence on the power of gratitude. There's so much evidence about it. So thank you very much.
This is one of those conversations we could just like carry on all day. and it is so uplifting that we kind of want to. But being respectful to your time, I want to wrap us up with just a couple of questions. And Amy, I'm going to give you the last question. I'm going to ask Brad, where can people find out more about you?
So you can go to my website, Brad Aronson, and Aronson is ARONSON.com. And from there, you could connect to me on social media or drop me an email. Always happy to chat with people.
And I confirm that because I just reached out to Brad about this podcast when I read his book, and he responded to me very quickly and got back with me. And so just thank you for the good work that you're doing.
You're welcome.
Yeah. That it makes me think of the saying, see the light, be the light. That is absolutely you.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you for just being this beautiful light beacon of light. It's really, really powerful. So, Brad, tell us, what is one thing that you can share with our listeners of how they can infuse compassion? What's one tip of how they can infuse compassion into their life this week?
So I would say mindset is most important. So if you wake up every day and say, I'm going to make someone's day better today, you'll have a chance to do it. And if you need a reminder, maybe you put something in the left pocket of your pants. And once you do it, you move it to the right. So if at night you're like, oh no, this is still here, I'll write someone a thank you note or do something. But if you're looking for that opportunity, you can. It's as simple as knowing the name of the person who parks your car. I remember going to where my parents live, and the parking attendant stopped me. He's like, "You're Joe's son? He knows my name. He knows my kids' names. He talks to me." And there were like tears in this person's eyes. I thought, that is a small thing, but it makes a difference. Reaching out to someone, but deciding, it's mindset. If you decide I'm going to make someone's day better with a compliment, with reaching out with a thank you note, we can do it. And maybe you put it on your calendar with a specific time so it gets done.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This has been really powerful, truly powerful. Thank you. Again, just the beautiful work that you're doing, and you continue to work. And thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Mark, anything else?
Yeah, I was just going to end with, you've got so many ideas already. So compassionators, go out and make this a great week, not just for other people, but for yourselves. Because the more kindness we give to other people, the more compassion that we can spread, the better we feel about ourselves too. So thanks, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you on the next Infuse Compassion podcast.
See you on the next one.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Infuse Compassion podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please share a review and like the podcast so other compassionators can join us. Until next time, let's all do something each day to infuse compassion into the world. For more information on our guests, see the show notes. For more information on Mark and Amy, go to infusecompassion.com.